All right, people, today we are going to be talking about e-bike buying and maintenance tips. How's that for a topic? This will appeal to owners and potential owners. Okay? So, first and foremost, on everybody's mind is cost. And what's interesting is I've had a lot of people in the recent past tell me when I was talking about a bike being only $2,000, and they're like, well, that's a lot of money to a lot of us. Well, okay, I totally understand that, and that's my bad. So regardless of the situation you're in, you got to think of cost. And if it comes with cost, just like everything else, is quality, or inequality, I should say. So when you buy something really cheap, you're going to get something really cheap. You know, they're chintzing on the parts, the components that could break. So my advice, if you want to get into e-biking, you've never tried an e-bike, and you're not sure if it's even something you want to do, buy the Jetson Bolt Pro. 350 to 400 bucks. You can get it at Costco, you can get it on Amazon, and it's just a great bike to try out. You know, it's kind of like when I bought a pickleball set. I bought 4 paddles and 6 balls for $20, and my paddle now is $80. So that just puts it in perspective. You want to try stuff out before you buy. So try before you buy. Then when you decide you want a bike and you got to stay like under $1,000, look at like the electric. It's an electric without an E. They're like $900, pretty decent bikes, fat tire. Look at the Swagtrons, the EV7 Plus, the EV7. They're $700-800. Really good quality. They, you know, some of them even have suspension. Look at, you know, there are a lot of different bikes. Vituvia has some that are kind of cheap. I'll link to some others. So consider a bike from one of those manufacturers in that low range. But just keep in mind that you're going to be paying in the long run potentially for repairs, maintenance, you know, the bike having issues, having to send it back, etc. Some of those are hit or miss. Some people, I did a review of the Rad Runner, which at the time was like $1,300. I think it's like $14 now. And it's just a simple 3-inch wide tire, 20-inch electric bike. It's got a scoop front, so anybody can step over it, step through front. It has no suspension, but it's, you know, it's a good beginner bike, or for anybody actually for that matter. And a lot of people are saying, you know, hey, I've had that for 2 years, no problem. So yeah, some bikes, you know, you get, and it's a roll of the dice. You might just get a phenomenal one. Some people have had no problem with their Super 73. And there's people like me who had to get an entire engine replacement, you know? So, cost. And then if you have some more money, you go up into the $2,000 or the $3,000, you're getting more frills and you're getting better quality. Better quality Shimano components, better quality, you're getting suspension, like good suspension. Sometimes you even get better, you know, brakes. Sometimes you get hydraulic brakes instead of mechanical, on and on. So cost, really important factor. And I'm gonna link to some videos that talk about bikes you can get in certain price ranges. The next one is warranty. A lot of companies, most e-bike companies offer at least a 1-year warranty, some a 2-year warranty, but sometimes it's only on certain parts. It's just on the motor. Like they don't want to replace your tires, for example. That's your problem, right? So be sure and look at the warranty and see what's actually covered. Something else to keep in mind, which most people don't know, when you're selling your bike and you've had it for 3 months and you're selling it under the guise that, hey, it's still got 9 months of warranty left. Typically you register that bike, or the company registers the bike with a serial number and your name when you buy it or you register it. As soon as you transfer, you've transferred ownership, it's no longer, the name is no longer matching that registration, and they don't cover the warranty anymore. So warranties for the most part in e-bike world are non-transferable. Keep that in mind. Okay, so that's a little bit on warranty. You can certainly go on YouTube, and I'll link to some of these videos where, you know, you can adjust your brakes, you can bleed your brakes, you can change your tires if you get a flat tire, change your inner tube, put in green slime, put in tire liners, you know, a lot of different things you can do to your bike for, you know, upkeep or maintenance or troubleshooting. But a lot of people don't have that inclination and don't even want to try. And so they need a bike shop. A lot of local bike shops won't do it for the simple reason that most electric bikes have like a fat frame and they don't fit in their stand. They have these little stands that they put, you know, the crossbar or, you know, the center bar on the average bike in there, and it kind of holds the bike up. That clamp will not hold larger electric bikes, and that is the simple reason why many of them will not take on electric bikes. So be conscious of the fact that if you don't have an electric bike service provider, you know, mechanic nearby, then you might be in some kind of you might be in some trouble in terms of who can service it for you. So let's talk about upkeep, which is kind of in line with what I was just talking about maintenance and troubleshooting. The average electric bike comes with mechanical disc brakes. You know, they're based on, you know, the cables and the, you know, pulling the cable, and it tightens the brakes. But they have discs, you know, metal discs at the bottom that actually the calipers, the brake calipers, sandwich on and slow the bike down, as opposed to typical road bikes from, you know, yesteryear, and frankly a lot of them today just have like little brake pads that clamp down on the wheel. So mechanical disc brakes have this little metal disc that the brake pads clamp down on, and it gives better braking power than, you know, standard brakes. A lot of times those brake pads will get really close to the brake rotor, the metal rotor, and they'll rub, and it'll drive you crazy. And sometimes that rubbing gets bad enough where you actually have to do something about it, because it's not just the noise, but the brake pad's rubbing so much it's slowing the tire down. And you know that when you lift up the front or the back wheel and you spin it, and it doesn't spin more than like 20 revolutions. It should spin for a while. If it doesn't, then you're having rubbing. There's a lot of nuances to fixing that problem, and I'll link to you know, some videos on that. But the average person, even with some YouTube videos, is probably not going to take that project on. But you know, you can certainly look on some YouTube videos and try to figure that out. But the point is, if you're buying an electric bike, you got to keep that in mind, because you're going to have that issue. You're also going to get a flat tire. And a lot of electric bikes, especially the fat tire ones, the big fat tire ones with 4-inch or 3-inch wide tires, they're really hard to break the bead around the wheel to get the tire off. And you know, it's just complicated for some people. And when you get the wheel back on, or the tire back on, you want to make sure you center it. Otherwise, the tire, when it rotates, is going to be, you know, lopsided. It's going to go, and you're going to feel a wobble when you ride, and you're going to hear a noise. So these are just some of the very simple adjustments you're going to want to make. And if you don't have that capability, you want to make sure you got somebody that can do it for you, a neighbor, a friend, family member, or a local bike shop that's willing to do it. So just keep that in mind. Hydraulic disc brakes, which are similar to mechanic, but they actually have fluid that is used to engage the brake pads. They have, that fluid sometimes gets air bubbles in it. It's just a steady stream of fluid. It's a little reservoir, typically right up here, and it's got, like this one actually has it, mineral oil. You see it right there. It's a reservoir for oil, and then that oil goes through the cables. And over time, those cables get air bubbles. And air bubbles make your brakes, you know, not tight. you'll pull the brake and it'll just be really loose. That means there's too many air bubbles. And you have to bleed it. You literally have to take the fluid out and put in new fluid. That's another thing for upkeep that a lot of people struggle with. Frankly, I've never even done that, and a lot of people need people that can do it for them. So keep that in mind. Another factor is transport. If you're just going to jump on your bike and ride it, then you can get the heaviest electric bike there is, and it doesn't matter. But a lot of people like to take them camping. A lot of people like to take them to certain trails. A lot of people like to ride across town and ride somewhere else with a friend. Ride it to somebody's, take it with them on vacation. If you're doing that, you got to make sure the bike is light enough and compact enough. You know, there's some foldable bikes that are like 30, 40 pounds. Some of them go up to like 50, 60 pounds, but they're still foldable and light enough that you could put them in the trunk of a car. If you had to, put it on a subway or a train. You're not going to be taking any of them on a plane. I don't care how small it is. You're not going to be taking any of them on a plane. But some of them you can throw, if they're light enough, you can throw in a rack that, you know, you have a tow hitch, and you can put a nice rack on that. That's what you want to have. It's one of those where the bike actually sits on a platform, not the ones that just dangle with cords off your back windshield. You don't want one of those. These electric bikes are too heavy for that. But you can get one of those platform ones that will handle electric bike. But you want to be able to lift it up into there. So keep in mind, you know, transport and weight. The average electric bike, just average, is between 50 and 70 pounds. There's some that go down to like 40, like my Luna electric folding bike. And there's some that go up to, you know, 150 pounds, like my Cab Eagle. Well, that's more or less like a glorified electric motorcycle. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind terrain. When you're buying a bike or you have a bike and you're considering going on different terrain, just keep in mind that tires mean everything. If you have slick tires, stay on the road. If you have tires with like a little bit of, you know, a groove, like 2 sets of grooves going along the tire, you can handle like light fire roads, you know, very hard packed dirt, but that's about it. If you have some knobbies, whether they're light or not, you know, whether they're really close together or sparse, you can handle some decent trails. If you have really aggressive knobbies with, you know, a lot of knobbies, really densely packed, you can handle some more aggressive terrain. Knobbies that are kind of sparse, you can handle some light off-road. Just be careful when you're going around turns that you're not, you know, sliding and your wheels not sliding and washing out. Also keep in mind, if you're ever attempting grass or dirt, wide tires, like 3 or 4 inch wide tires, are a lot better for that kind of terrain, but you have to lower your air pressure to like 15 psi, right? So that's something else to keep in mind whether you buy a bike or you ride a bike. We talked a little bit about suspension. No, we did. We talked about brakes. So most electric bikes come with one of either no suspension or just front suspension or front and back suspension. Obviously, the more expensive the bike, the higher the chances are you're going to get full suspension, which means front and back. But in addition to that suspension, some of them are better suspension than others. A good rule of thumb is look for a big, thick coil spring near the rear seat, under the rear seat. If you see that, then you've got some pretty robust suspension. Also look for really thick forks, like these forks, really thick. And they've got front suspension built into the forks, suspension forks. Another very nice luxury when you're going over rocks and bumps and whatnot. Whether you're on the street, you're going over speed bumps, or you're going over dirt and rocks, it just helps a lot. Full suspension is unbelievable. That's what this bike has. You're just floating on air. And you couple that with fat tires, and it's just a freaking beautiful ride. It's like riding a lazy boy. Something else to keep in mind whether you have a bike, e-bike, you're looking to buy one, you're looking to upgrade, is range. How much range are you going to need, are you going to want? How far are you going to want to go? Are you going to commute to work, and work is like 15 miles each way, and you need a 30 mile, or you need like a 40 mile range bike? Are you just going to be putting around the neighborhood? You can get a smaller bike, right? But it all comes down to battery. And I'm going to link to my battery video where I explain the different nuances of batteries. But there's two main factors you got to keep in mind. One, the volts. A lot of, smaller, less expensive bikes, e-bikes, come with a 36 volt battery. You're not going to get a whole lot of power, and you're not going to get a whole lot of range. Most e-bikes today come with a 48 volt. That's where you're upwards of, so the 36 volt batteries will typically give you 10 to, 14, 16 miles on the high end of range before it dies. 48 volt, and there's so many variables in terms of how you ride. Do you go up hills? Are you throttle only? How much do you weigh? But on average. Then you got 48 volt batteries. One, if you ride it really aggressively, you might get 18 miles. If you ride it really cautiously, you might be able to get 24, 25, 26 miles. That's just a good rule of thumb. But the other factor that's equally as important as volts is amp hours and watt hours. And again, I'm going to link to my video that gives more of a description. Watch that video and you get a real sense for what type of battery to look for. Watts, amp hours, and volts. And that'll give you a real sense of about how far it'll go. A lot of manufacturers like to put on there how far they go, the bikes, but I mean, that could be with like a little 3-year-old kid that weighs 12 pounds. That doesn't mean anything. If you're 200 pounds, that's not going to be the same range you're going to get. So the best way to figure that out is amp hours, watt hours, and volts. To give you an idea, some batteries go as high as 52 volts, like the Aerial Rider Grizzly, the Juice Hyper Scrambler 2. A lot more range. A lot of batteries, there's some batteries come in 60 volts. The Suron, that doesn't give it necessarily a whole lot more range. In that case, that's more just for performance. You get a lot more torque and power, speed. And then you got 72 volts, which is what my Cab Eagle has, and I get like 70 miles range, and there is no pedal assist, it's just throttle. So battery and range is a big thing to keep in mind as well. All right, and a lot of people have an electric bike, they love it, but they want more battery power, more range. So you either have to get a bigger battery, which sometimes means you have to get a new speed controller, which is the electrical component, the electrical device that actually controls the power flow into the battery. But sometimes people are putting a second battery, and they daisy chain them together, where they run in parallel or they run in succession. Once one dies, they flip over to the other one. So that's something else to keep in mind. Another very important factor to consider is gears. A lot of electric bikes on the low end, for example, the Rad Runner from Rad Power Bikes, the Rad Mission, just an example. Decent bikes, but they only have one gear, or Super 73 for that matter. So unless the bike has a lot of torque, meaning a powerful motor and a powerful battery, you're gonna have problems going up hills. So back to terrain, if you're gonna be going up hills on the way to school, on the way to work, on the way to the gym, make sure you've got pedal assist and gears. Pedal assist is not gonna be enough if your bike, like the Rad Runner, for example, it's a single gear bike, but the gear it gives you is like gear 4. Let's say there's 10 gears, it'd be gear 4. So it's fairly easy to pedal. Once you start going 12 or 14 miles an hour, you can't pedal anymore because it's too low of a gear. But it's good for going up hills. So that bike, for example, has only one gear, but it's a low gear and it has pedal assist, so you can actually go up some hills. The Rad Mission, for example, only has one gear, and it's like gear 7, which means it's really hard to pedal, which means it's a really good high-end gear to go fast speeds, but it doesn't help you in the low end to go up hills. It doesn't give you any torque. So having gears enables you to downshift. To give you an example, this electric bike, the Super 73R, came with one gear, and I couldn't go up any freaking hills, and it drove me crazy. So I had a 7 gear sprocket put on, 8 gear sprocket, excuse me, and you can see I have an 8 gear shifter. Enables me to go up hills now because I can downshift all the way to gear 1 and pedal really easily while I'm using pedal assist and go up a steep hill. So that's something else to consider, very important. Another factor is the police and local laws. The best electric bike you can get is one that looks like a bicycle. That is an electric mountain bike that just has a battery on it. Nobody's ever going to give you any problems. Ride it through parks, occasionally ride it on the sidewalk if you have to, in a precarious situation. Ride it in the grass, ride around the neighborhood, whatever. You get bikes like the e-moto type bikes that look more like a kind of a motorcycle, if you will, kind of like the Super 73, kind of like the aerial rider bikes, the juiced bikes, etc. You're gonna be all right for the most part because they have big pedals and you're pedaling and they're low to the ground, and they don't look like motorcycles. They look like, you know, electric bicycles that are designed to look like motorcycles. There's a difference. But then you get into the Onyxes, the Surons, the Stealths, the Enduros, the Cab Motorworks, and many of them look like motorcycles. The Suron, for example, a lot of people have no problem with them, but some places have laws that you're going to get pulled over. Whether you're riding on a trail or you're riding in the street, it just looks like a motorcycle. So keep that in mind. Same thing with the Onyx, looks like a motorcycle. And some of them don't even have pedals. The Suron doesn't have any pedals. So, you know, good rule of thumb, and I'm probably gonna get some hate for this, but when you're coming by, when you're riding by like a police officer, and you have pedals on one of those bikes, like an Onyx, start pedaling. It makes it look like a bicycle more, and you have a better shot of just getting away with maybe a warning or not even being pulled over at all. So keep that in mind. So those are just some of the considerations when buying or maintaining or riding or upgrading an electric bike. So keep those things in mind, and you'll make better decisions, okay? So I hope this helps. Just trying to provide some value, and as always, give me any comments, any questions. I always try to answer my commenters. People give me a lot of questions and I answer them, so feel free to do that. And that'll do it. God bless, peace out.